got those goosebumps happy.
Spin it back now.
I got those goosebumps happy.
The +2 Sucker Punch is going to do it, and the Boston Red Claws with a shocker here.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to playoffs. We finally made playoffs for Superior Draft League, and we're going right into this. I'm joined by Perk Hayes. You want to say hello to everybody?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to playoffs. Are you excited? Because I am very excited.
So we're going to be watching the match between the Spikemuth Pranksters and the Flying Dutchmence, as the Spikemuth Pranksters just locked in their team. So I did not catch what they got, but they're rocking a team of Annihilate, Magirna, Sneasler, Jumpluff, Sableye, and Cloyitzer.
Right, and we can see on the other side, we got the Rotomo. We've got the Butterfly. I don't know which one that is. It's Vivillon, I believe. We've got ourselves a Tauros. I didn't catch the other ones. Let's see. We had, well, we'll see it in a second here.
There's a few mons up in there, but I'm excited to see playoffs because, you know, this is where teams start changing things up a bit. So I'm excited to see what happens here.
Right, and I think this is going to be a good match. I think the Dutchments are definitely going to be fighting an uphill battle in this one. I mean, as we've seen, the Pranksters have been dominating all season long. They only have 6 round losses. And by that, I mean they've only lost 6 rounds in the entire regular season, which is really impressive. So we see the Frostlass lead with the Crocodile into the Annihilate with the Magirna.
And this is going to be a very tough matchup because right now there's so many things you can do on both sides, right? So I think it's pretty hard to determine what the play is. We saw the Annihilate go for Final Gambit on that Crocodile. So there's a few things you could do, right? You could Terra your Mon and try to go for that critical Ice-type move onto the Crocodile to trigger its Anger Point, which I think the Spikemuth Pranksters predict.
Ooh,
so let's see what happens this turn for this Fairy Terra.
And they go right into it. The confidence right out the gate. You like to see it.
As we do see the Frost Breath come in, hitting that Crocodile. And again, that's that critical hit. Does it have Anger Point? It does have Anger Point. Ooh, this is going to be tough. So we saw Final Gambit click into the Crocodile. I think this is going to go ahead and nullify that Anger Point technique, and it's out. It's in.
So we go 1 for 1 right at the start. Good play by both sides. Seeing that potential come out. The Dutchments were able to take care of it. The Crocodile goes down. So we're down to Terra on the Pranksters side. Down a Crocodile, and we're down a Annihilate.
And now that Magirna getting 2 special attack boosts, going straight into Flash Cannon onto the Frostlass, and it does not have a Focus Sash. So this first turn was brutal for the Flying Dutchments as they lose both of their Mons. And now that Magirna is just stacked right now.
Yeah, that was a really good play. I really like that play a lot, honestly. That was really awesome.
That was an extremely dominating play because right now the Magirna could potentially just take out this Palkia in one shot.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully that thing's run and protect. We might see something with the Vivillon play here. Obviously, Vivillon most likely playing the support role here. Ooh, we like the shiny Sneasler.
All season long, Vivillon I don't think has a single kill. It's been mainly a support mon, triggered with like Rage Powder and support moves like Sleep Powder and such of the case. So it's interesting to see what the Vivillon may do. Potentially maybe like a Rage Powder where maybe Palkia wants to focus on taking care of the Magirna. But again, at this point, Magirna is just, it's too overpowering.
Right, and we're seeing the Fake Out, and then we're going to see that Substitute here. Survives the Earth Power. Is it going to be enough to be able to still Substitute?
Oh, we got the flinch for the Vivillon, and we see the Substitute. Is it enough HP? It is!
Oh, just enough.
Barely.
Three health left.
3 HP and a Substitute setup. That is impressive. That's cutting it close. I thought it wasn't gonna be able to set it up.
Yeah, I didn't think so either.
So now we see Sneasler, which again, Sneasler, I used to have Sneasler on my team. This thing does a lot of damage. So we did see that Dire Claw. The thing with Dire Claw is that it can give you a random status. So I didn't want to run it because I didn't want to keep putting things to sleep, which would be banned technically. So let's see what happens this turn.
So we see the Protect. Interesting. Now, will that still protect the Substitute?
It should still protect the Substitute, yes.
Okay.
And Dire Claw is enough to secure the KO on Vivillon, so now the Flying Dutchments are down to Palkia.
I mean, you got to watch out. That Sneasler, 130 base power attack. You do not want to get smacked by that thing.
No, you definitely do not. And we see another special attack boost for the Magearna. Is this just going to be a one-shot into the Palkia now that that substitute can just take the hit?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if they can't break this substitute, there's nothing that they can do to stop this thing from just mowing down this Palkia.
Oh, and he's going for the Terra Fairy on top of that. And we see the battle canceled from the Flying Dutchments as they know that they lost that first round. So again, you know,
that was quick.
The Spikemuth Pranksters just going straight in, dominating that turn 1. That was the best turn 1 we've seen probably all season.
Yeah, I mean, they just came in. They clearly had a plan, and they just executed on every single turn. And I mean, they just played great. That was awesome. I mean, it did seem like the Dutchments had a good plan going in, but it just seemed like the Pranksters just like they just saw it coming clear as day, and it played right into their plan. And they executed perfectly.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with that first exchange. It was just, and we were talking about it too as it was playing out and before it played out, and the fact that it just went play for play, and it just happened so efficiently. Those are the things you say as a commentator, but you don't really expect to happen. But then when you see it happen, you're just like, oh my god, it happened. So it was really cool to see. I don't think the Spikemuth Pranksters need to change anything about their bring this turn.
No, I don't think so either. Because I don't feel like that they've really shown their whole hand yet. I mean, that's only one. Like, Annihilate, you go for the final gambit. He read the play. He went for it. But that's not all Annihilate is good at. You can use Annihilate in a lot of ways. And certainly just, having it KO itself on turn 1 isn't even the best way to use it. Obviously, it worked well there. But so I think they still have plenty of cards up their sleeves. And like at this point, they're 1-up right now, so I think they can afford to bring the same thing and let the other team kind of outplay themselves.
And now we have a Vivillon Tauros lead as we still see the same lead from the Spikemuth Pranksters. Now that Intimidate on Tauros, I'm wondering, it is Defiant, so Annihilate rocking Defiant gets the boost instead, and Magearna doesn't mind the physical attack being dropped. So.
Right.
And we see the good prep here from the Spikemuth Pranksters as that Annihilate has Rock Slide. And it's super effective on Vivillon for sure, and just neutrally effective on Tauros because of the fire typing along with that fighting type. So, again, very good team building from the Spikemuth Prankster side.
Right, and I have to wonder if they thought that the Sneasler was coming in here, because that Intimidate on Sneasler would have been really nice, like you said. That it hits so hard, it would have been great. But I think knowing that your opponent has an Annihilate and it's so dominant, like, the risk that it's coming out turn 1 is too high, and I can't necessarily agree with that play.
Yeah, if there's and you see the Rage Powder from the Vivillon, looking at an Intimidate user against a Defiant, I think it's always, you gotta be hesitant with how you play it.
Absolutely. As
Vivillon is living, it does have a Focus Sash.
Focus Sash.
And now we're gonna go ahead and see what the Tauros is gonna do as it's flinched and it can't do anything.
You live and die by the Rock Slide. That's how it goes.
As Dazzling Gleam secures the KO on that Vivillon, we're going to go see Magearna get a special attack boost. And now it seems like it's leading to the same, outcome from last game, because this Magearna is going to start getting boosted. And now it's not weak to fire types because it's not a steel type anymore. It's just pure fairy.
Right. And what do you think? I mean, what do you think he brings in here? I feel like I don't think it's the Palkia, although I'm almost positive that the Palkia is there somewhere. Yeah. I'm guessing. I think right now we see the Frostlass, which I think is a fairly solid play.
I mean, I think your bet here is maybe Frostlass outspeeds the Magearna and get like a Destiny Bond going and just take it down with you is the only play I would think. This Annihilate will outspeed, but he can't use Final Gambit on Frostlass, so he'd have to hit Rock Slide. And then I guess your bet is maybe have Frostlass live and take the Destiny Bond with you and take that Magearna. Make sure the Magearna knocks you out. I think that's the only play, but again, we don't know if it has Destiny Bond. So it'll be interesting to see how this turn plays out. I think this turn is going to determine the rest of the match.
Right, absolutely. So we see the Protect going into the Magearna slot. They definitely hesitated over Substitute, but I think Protect is the better call
Yeah.
because potentially it could take a lot of damage here, or at least enough where you might not be able to get the Substitute and you're just wasting a turn.
Correct. And it's a good way to scout if there is a Destiny Bond, because then you won't be able to use it next turn.
Right, exactly.
Or you'll just adjust to it. So we'll see the Protect. We see the Icy Wind from Frostlass. Again, that's an issue because that will also trigger Defiant on the Annihilate.
Right, and I think maybe just not seeing it, just whether it's nerves or whatnot. Like I've definitely made that mistake myself, so I can definitely understand. Ooh,
That
Old
Flare
Mom with 3.
Blitz almost takes out the Annihilate, but it knocks itself out with that recoil damage. So again, it's still that position where it's too tough to kind of adjust. That Rock Slide knocking out the Frostlass, and now the Flying Dutchments are left to their final Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean, that double Defiant is no joke, and that Soul Heart going off for a 3rd time here, that thing is... I'm sorry, but at this point, there's just nothing left that you can do. We already know that the Annihilate can Final Gambit this Krookodile if it wants to.
It won't be enough to knock it down because of the HP.
True.
So he will probably preserve his Annihilate here. And it was also Choice Scarf, so it was locked in.
That's it.
And that's it. It's game. The Spikemuth Pranksters make it to the semifinals.
That's right. I mean, great season to both coaches. Obviously, the Pranksters have been really dominant all season long, so it's it's great to see them come out here and play the same way that they've been playing all season. Their strategy in that first set was just incredible, and I think overall they just played excellently. And congratulations to the Dutchments as well for putting on such a great season and making it to playoffs. And yeah, I think this season overall has had some of the funnest matches that I've ever seen watching, out the multiple seasons and leagues that I've done. This has been one of the funnest to watch.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and, I guess, discuss what this playoff scenario is looking like a little bit further. All right, and now we're here. Let's go ahead and discuss where we're at with the standings and with the playoff scenario. So we have our nifty little spreadsheet here, and we have Perk joining along. I think this is the first time in Friday Night Draft League that we have two people kind of discussing something post-game together.
It is, but I think given that we're in playoffs and things are a little bit different, given how we normally do the show, it seems appropriate.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and just scroll straight down. Obviously, all this information for the kill leaders and stuff is from the regular season. What we want to look at is down here for the playoff section, which is kind of small, but you just use it to kind of reference. As we see the Spikemuth Pranksters defeat the Flying Dutchments, and they move on to battle the Cleveland Celebi for next week. And then in the other matchup, we have the Ken Cloths versus Riolu's Rangers. They actually get the Ken Cloths to win and move forward against the Cuernavaca Cyndaquils. So next week, it's going to be the Cleveland Celebi versus the Spikemuth Pranksters, and then the Cuernavaca Cyndaquils versus the Kent Cloths.
Yeah, and I mean, what I would give to be a fly on the wall for the Celebes match with the Pranksters. I mean, you want to talk about two of the most dominant teams this season. We had talked about if you watched the match just a few moments ago, how the Spikemuth Pranksters they only lost 6 rounds in the regular season, while the Celebi only lost 4.
Yeah,
which is just insane to me. I mean, you can play so many rounds, and just to walk away with only having lost 4 is such a huge accomplishment. So regardless of how they perform at this point, I think they've more than proven that they're a fantastic coach.
Yeah, let's break down these teams then. Let's see this first matchup, right? So we have the Spikemuth Pranksters, who just won, and then we have the Cleveland Celebi, which will be right here, right? Let's talk about both these teams. Let's start with the Cleveland Celebi, who got the #1 seed across the whole league, right? They have an extremely dominant team, Miraidon being the season kill leader as well. The thing about this team is Miraidon enables the whole team. No matter how you look at it, it just enables the whole team. And now, towards the trade deadline, they made a transaction where they got the Hippowdon and Lycanroc Midday to enable a completely different mode to the team with the Doug Trio as well. So there's 2 different modes, 3 if you look at the snow with the Balma Snow. There's 3 different modes to this team that all flow naturally and all benefit with one another. So, Miraidon has been the star of the team, if you will. And if you could see like the expected kill and death, they're expected to kill at least 5 Pokemon each time. they play, and that's just expected. That's an average, which is a high average. It's the highest average across all the teams in the league. So again, Miraidon setting up the terrain. You can't put any of these Pokemon to sleep. Maybe Iron Jugulus that doesn't make contact with the floor, but none of these Pokemon are going to sleep. So no Sleep Powder, no Spore. Miraidon's getting a boost. Iron Hands, Iron Bundle, Iron Jugulus, all getting a boost from the terrain. And then if you wanted to bundle, get what I did there? Bundle Iron Bundle with Abomasnow together, you have a double Blizzard combo, which becomes even harder to deal with if you don't have Wide Guard. So I think this team overall is just extremely dominant.
It's dominant and it's scary. It's straight up scary. I mean, one of the craziest things about this team is you could bring this to an actual VGC match and you have, for the most part, a pretty standard team. You see the Iron Hands, you see the Iron Bundle. Miraidon's obviously not something you could bring right now, but if you could, you would. Yeah. And you see the Abomasnow. I mean, Doug Trio being super, super fast. And like you said, multiple scenarios where they enable each other to be better. Yep. And I think that's the most dangerous thing. How do you prep for a team that has so many different ways to go? And it's not like, oh, well, I've got a strong sun team and a weak rain team and a iffy, sandstorm team, whatever. Like, just strong on every front and really hard to prep for. There's so many threats on this team. I think, anybody who's going to have to go up against them is going to have a hard time racking their brain on how to come up with a plan. Yep.
And so let's go ahead and look at their opponent, like we were just talking about a second ago, the Spikemuth Pranksters, who just won today's match. They have an expected kill death of 4.20, so about 4 Pokemon each time they play. Their record is a little bit lesser, obviously, than the first seed, but they're really dominant. That Magearna is a threat. Annihilate is a threat. Don't sleep on Regidrago. That thing's a threat as well. And now the addition of Sneasler, and I'm interested to see what they do at Stonejourner if that even comes in. Stonejourner can boost its allies' attack stats as well, or their attack. So overall, this team is not a slouch. Sablei's there, and that Prankster ability, we've seen it time and time again win championships. So I think Prankster can be, I guess, not the underdog, but like the hidden technique that kind of gets them through.
Yeah, and I think too, it's like, it's sometimes it's not always the size of the boat, it's the motion of the ocean, and we've seen that the Pranksters, they know the motion of the ocean, okay? They know how to utilize their team, as we just watched, in a fantastic way. And I think this team has so many tricks that it can pull off that if there's any team that's going to put up a good fight against the Celebes, I think this is the one that's going to do it. I mean, we saw what the Magearna could do in the last match. We see how versatile Annihilate can be if you're willing to sacrifice it. Sneasler, super hard hitting, got priority moves. We have the Stonejourner, like you said, which is such a weird mon that if used effectively is just so annoying and frustrating. And we haven't really seen a lot of Regidrago, which is obviously a powerhouse. So I think this is the match I'm more excited for out of the two coming up. So I'm really looking forward to see, what these coaches will come out with.
Yeah, so with that, let's go ahead and see what the other matchup was, which was the Cuernavaca Cyndaquils, and we'll start off with them. They're the second seed, so for the Orange Division, the top team, and they're our champion from last season, so they're still in it again for playoffs. And Solo Salo and the Cuernavaca Cyndaquils have been one of the most consistent players we've had in this league. We've not only done Superior Draft League, we've also done in the past the ABL, and time again the Cuernavaca Cyndaquils would be in playoffs. So looking at this team, this is a sharp contrast to what their opponent is going to have, which is, I think we should have this as the featured match simply because of the matchups, but we'll get into that in a second. We have Groudon, Roaring Moon, Slowbro, Arcanine Hisuian, Morgrem, Electrode, Goldengo, Lilligant Hisuian, Pyroar, and Tropius. A very strong Sun team. Not a traditional Sun team, but a very strong Sun team. And we do have a Prankstermon and Morgrem. Roaring Moon, Lilligant, Pyroar, and Arcanine, and Tropius benefiting from the Sun that Groudon sets up, and Groudon being that threat already. This is a team that, I mean, if you don't take care of things quick, it's just going to completely dominate you.
Yeah, it gets out of hand quick. And I think one of the cool things about Solo Salo, like you said, is very consistent. Yeah. Very consistently, always good. And don't let him fool you. Now he tries to fool people, but the man is a secret genius.
Yeah.
All right, and he really does come up with some really, really interesting and sometimes devious plays. So this team, on paper it looks good, but the way that he's been able to utilize his teams in the past, I think, it's not a coach you want to underestimate.
Yeah.
They always have a plan. They always have ideas on how to make things work, and it's not always going to be the most conventional methods.
Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, the team just has a lot of power on it. We see the Golden Go, we see the Morgan with the Prankster, like you said, Electro being insanely fast, Roaring Moon, which you don't see a ton of. We saw it a lot more in previous VGC seasons than I've been seeing it lately, I feel like.
Yeah.
And then you have the Groudon, which is obviously insanely powerful. So yeah, I think this is definitely one to watch. It's never a boring match when Solo Sal is battling.
And then they're matched up against the Kent Cloths, which has been our I guess when we started the season, the #1 power ranking team, just because of that dominating Kyogre, Tornadus, Ursaluna, Basculegion combo.
Yeah.
And here they are. They made it to playoffs. They're in the semifinals. So again, we weren't far off with that initial power ranking on the team.
Right.
But they also have a prankster in Impidimp. But now they added Earthworm, who was the MVP of last week's match. Honestly, they dominated with that Earthworm. They completely walled the Lancing Leafeons. They could not take out the Earthworm. And then Hariyama, who has access to Wide Guard. Again, this team, if it's the direct opposite of the Cuernavaca Cyndaquils, and it is phenomenal. The fact that you have a Rain and Sun team battling it out against each other. This is going to be a very impressive matchup.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see if we're just going to see a weather war, or if both teams are going to say, like, maybe I don't want to push the weather as much because we're going to be fighting for it the whole game, but that could make it really fun.
Yes.
I think. Obviously, we've seen the Kyogre and the Tornadus be absolutely dominant. Ursaluna just insanely powerful. Like you said, the Earthworm. I had an Earthworm last season, and man, that thing is bulky. It is fun to use, but it has to have the proper setup. Obviously, the Cloths are very capable of doing that.
Yeah.
Hariyama is a great pick. Having a fake out. We got the Prankster. We also have the Paracharisu, which is a very common, or was a very common
Redirection.
support mon.
Yeah.
Right. And not one that you see a whole lot in VGC currently, but at least in draft, such a good support mon to have.
Yeah, no, and again, Basculegion getting access to Swift Swim in the rain and also having last respects. If this team starts losing mons and that Basculegion is still around, you better beware. That thing is gonna slap you.
You're in for a scare.
But again, this team has 2 modes as well. You have like a Tailwind mode with the Tornadus with an all-out offense, and you also have a Trick Room mode. There's multiple mons here that can set up Trick Room, and Ursaluna benefits greatly from that with the Flame Orb and Guts. So again, both these teams are so tough, and again, I'm going to be really excited to see how their match plays out. I think that has to be the commentated match next week.
Yeah, and I think too it's going to be fun too because, like you said, with that Trick Room, I mean, Solo Celo's got quite a few mons that could utilize that Trick Room as well. Not quite as many, but there are some, and I think all these things, all these elements are going to come into play, and both these coaches are going to have to sit down and consider like what is worth doing, what is not, what's going to benefit me more. How do I stay dominant with my weather and not theirs? And I think like you said, it's just gonna be a great match.
Yeah, well, we'll have to find out next week whenever we go ahead and commentate that match. But for now, I guess we could just go ahead and end it. This has been Friday Night Draft League for the playoffs of Superior Draft League. You have any final closing thoughts?
No, not really. Just, thank you guys for joining us. And we hope you'll join us for next week when we see the semifinals.
Oof, I can't believe we finally made it. It's been a while, huh?
Yeah, it has.
Anyways, until next time, take it easy.